Bruce Catton kept a secret for 23 years. A secret he discovered in 1961 but only revealed in his posthumous memoirs, because he knew it would change everything we thought we knew about Ulysses S. Grant and about the true purpose of the Civil War. It was a personal letter Grant wrote to his father in December 1862. Hidden deep inside a dusty trunk at the Grant family home in Ohio. The handwriting was shaky, the ink blurred in places, as if tears had fallen on the paper. The first line made Catton tremble. "Father, today I made a decision that might destroy my military career, but save my soul. I can no longer pretend this war is only about union. It is about liberation. And I'm ready to lose everything for that." Catton never forgot the moment he read those words. He was alone in his library. It was a rainy Tuesday. And suddenly, he realized he had found the exact day when Grant stopped being a general and became a liberator. Today, Bruce Catton confesses the most transformative discovery of his career. A discovery that made him cry in public for the first time since his mother's death. Because he saw that Grant didn't just win the war, he risked everything to change the soul of America. When Bruce Catton began writing about Grant in the late 1950s, he started with a bias. He saw Grant as a competent soldier, but politically naive. A man who knew how to win battles, Catton wrote, but who didn't understand the moral complexity of war. Catton was wrong, and he learned that the most devastating way. It began with a conversation in 1959 with a 95-year-old veteran who had served under Grant in the 21st Illinois Regiment. The man's words stuck in Catton's memory. "Young man, you historians talk about Grant like he was just a soldier. But I saw the day he cried looking at runaway slaves. I saw the day he decided we weren't fighting to bring the South back, we were fighting to free human beings." Catton wrote in his private journal, "I must find that day. I must find the moment Grant changed." He found the answer in March 1961, while researching at the Ohio Historical Society. An archivist mentioned they'd received a donation from the Grant family, personal documents that had never been catalogued. Catton asked to see everything, and buried among hundreds of routine military letters, he found the letter to Grant's father, dated December 17, 1862. Grant was in Holly Springs, Mississippi, during his first independent campaign toward Vicksburg. And that day, something happened that changed not only Grant, but the entire moral direction of the war. Catton pieced together the story using a chaplain's diary, officer reports, and personal letters from that week. December 17th began like any other day. Grant was inspecting his lines when an officer approached him urgently. "General, we've got a situation. More runaway slaves arrived, hundreds of them. And the owners are coming with legal warrants to take them back." Until then, Grant had followed the law. Escaped slaves were to be returned. That was the rule. And Grant was a man of rules. But something was different that morning. In the chaplain's diary, Catton found this scene. General Grant walked to the edge of the camp where the runaways had gathered. His face changed when a child, no older than 8, clung to his mother's leg and looked up at him with eyes begging for protection. The general stood still, took off his hat, ran his hand through his hair, and knelt down to speak to the child. Later that night, Grant wrote to his wife Julia, "Dearest Julia, today I looked into the eyes of a slave child and saw our own Jesse. I saw humanity where the law asks me to see property. I can no longer follow orders that treat people like objects. May God forgive me, but from this day forward, my war has a different purpose." That day, Grant made a decision that could have ended his military career. He wrote a confidential order to his officers. "Any escaped slave who seeks protection within our lines shall not be returned. They are to be employed as free laborers and given military protection. This order is effective immediately." It was still 1862. Lincoln hadn't yet signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Grant was acting on conscience, alone. The backlash was swift. Slaveholders in Kentucky, a Union state, went to Washington to complain. Politicians pressured Lincoln to remove Grant. But Grant stood firm. In a letter to a political ally, he wrote, "If I lose my command for refusing to hunt human beings like animals, then I lose it with honor. Some things matter more than military rank. The soul of our nation is one of them." Reading these letters, Catton had a personal epiphany. He realized Grant was not just a pragmatic commander. He was a hidden idealist, one who understood, before anyone else, that the war could only be truly won if it had a moral purpose. Grant began shaping a new kind of military strategy, one rooted in liberation. In a letter from early 1863, he wrote, "Every freed slave is a military victory. Every abandoned plantation weakens the enemy more than a battlefield win. We are fighting a system, not just soldiers." Grant quietly turned his army into a force of emancipation. The runaway slaves were protected and employed. Black soldiers were recruited and trained. Plantations were seized and repurposed. Schools for former slaves were opened. In 1963, Catton gained access to Grant's personal wartime diaries, kept hidden for over a century. What he read changed his understanding forever. December 25, 1862, Christmas far from home. But I saw black families reunited in freedom. Their tears made every risk I took worth it. January 15, 1863, Lincoln signed the proclamation. At last, the country caught up to my conscience. I am no longer alone. March 20, 1863, a colonel from Kentucky called me an abolitionist general. I told him I'd rather be that than a general who defends slavery. Some principles matter more than positions. Catton mapped how Grant's transformation caused a ripple effect. Other generals followed his lead. Official policies shifted to match his actions. Black troop recruitment surged. The Civil War officially became a war of freedom. Grant didn't follow Lincoln, Catton later wrote. He pulled Lincoln toward emancipation. In 1965, Catton found a final letter. Grant had written it to his daughter Nellie just months before his death. "When people ask what I'm proudest of, they expect me to say winning the war or being president. But what surprises them is this. I am proudest of the day in December 1862 when I chose not to return any man, woman, or child to slavery. That was the day I became truly American." Catton didn't write for 3 days after reading that letter. He realized he hadn't just uncovered the transformation of a general, but the rebirth of a nation. Grant understood something America would take decades to grasp, Catton wrote. True union can only be built on universal freedom. To win a war without winning morally is to lose the reason for fighting. Catton's greatest insight wasn't about tactics or campaigns. It was this. True leadership demands moments of moral courage, when you risk everything to do what's right, especially when no one is watching. Grant kept a private notebook throughout the war. In it, he recorded the names of every enslaved family he helped free. Over 10,000 names. He memorized them. He wasn't freeing statistics. He was freeing people, with names, stories, and families. And that changed the way he fought for them. In his final years, Bruce Catton reflected on what Grant's transformation meant for America. He believed that Grant's choice in 1862 defined the soul of the country more than any battlefield victory. America's greatness, Catton wrote, is not in its strength, but in its willingness to risk that strength for human dignity. And when critics accused Catton of moralizing history, he replied, "Grant taught me that the most important battles are fought inside the conscience. If I can't move the conscience of my readers, I've failed as a historian." At last, Catton understood why Grant had fascinated him for so many years. Because Grant had shown that it's possible to be a soldier and a humanitarian at the same time. That true strength lies not in conquering the strong, but in protecting the defenseless. Next time, Bruce Catton will reveal the most disturbing discovery he made about Robert E. Lee, the moment he realized slavery was wrong, but kept fighting for it anyway. And how that contradiction shattered the soul of one of history's greatest tacticians. Because sometimes, as Catton wrote, knowing what's right and failing to act is the greatest sin a leader can commit. If Grant's moral journey touched your conscience, share this video with someone who needs to understand that true leadership demands moral courage. And remember the words that changed Catton's life. There are things more important than a career. The soul of our nation is one of them. Grant risked everything for one simple truth. That all human beings are born free. And that truth was worth every risk. Even a war.